put the episode out, we just got breaking news that casino, Free Bands Casino, has been arrested by the federal government. If you do not know who Free Bands Casino is, that is Future's brother. He is heavily involved in the Free Band gang record label, and he's an ATL alleges that they found 21 bricks, 21 kilograms of fit and 380,000. From
Future's brother just walked out of federal custody after facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. Just weeks ago, FBG Casino shocked everyone by returning home, and nobody saw this coming at all. On December 2nd, Casino secured a $100,000 bond and was released into his sister's care, a move that instantly raised eyebrows across the industry.
Comes from an operation that occurred last Friday in Forest Park, Georgia, where FBI and DEA agents assigned to the HSTF arrested two men, Rico DeVille Bice, aka Casino, and David Esteban Montillo Diaz. Defendant Bice was caught fleeing from an Airbnb rental where agents were executing a federal search warrant. Bice was carrying a rubber-banded stack of cash, about approximately $4,000, but a lot more banded cash, approximately $380,000 worth.
What looked like a locked-in situation suddenly flipped overnight. This is the same man authorities linked to more than 21 kilograms of illegal substances and over $380,000 in cash, putting him in serious legal trouble with a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years looming over his head. The pressure was real and the stakes couldn't have been higher. The situation centers around FBG Casino, real name Rico DeVille, Future's older brother and a longtime member of the Free Band Circle from day one. Multiple federal agencies teamed up with local law enforcement in a massive coordinated operation that came in heavy and left no room for mistakes.
Oh man, that's crazy, man. That's crazy work, man.
Crazy.
You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy, like why, if Casino is over with an FBG label, he Future brother, why would he need to be selling? You know,
because it's a money thing. You probably,
This situation involves
According to court records, investigators spent months building a detailed case that could have kept him locked away for decades. But instead, Casino is now back home under strict house restrictions, waiting for his day in court while the internet tries to make sense of how this all unfolded. And trust me, this goes way deeper than what social media clips made it seem. From federal agents forcing entry into properties in Forest Park, Georgia, to Casino calmly walking out of custody days ago, the entire situation took a turn nobody expected. So what really happened behind the scenes? How did he secure his release? And what does this mean for one of Atlanta's most influential rap families moving forward? Let's break it all down step by step.
out of federal custody. After facing life in prison just weeks ago, FBG Casino is back home.
Agents showed reporters what they say is 21 kilos of fentanyl recovered from inside the rental home. They also displayed $380,000 in cash they say was seized, along with another $3,000 found on a man who tried to run. The suspects are Rico DeVille Bryce and David Esteban Montillo Diaz. Both are expected to go before a federal grand jury for formal charges.
To understand the full picture, you have to know exactly who FBG Casino is within Atlanta's rap scene. Born Rico DeVille Buick, he's Future's older brother and has been connected to free bands since the label's early days back in 2013. Casino appeared on Future's compilation mixtape, FBG the Movie, which exploded on DatPiff and pulled in over 250,000 downloads, earning platinum status on the platform. He also popped up on key records, including a feature on Future's single Karate Chop, produced by Metro Boomin, which helped cement his name early on.
This is a federal case, which speaks to the gravity of the scenario and situation. This is a bit different than some of these guys who's been caught up on some of these state charges. This is like the feds coming to get you and you being caught with 20 bricks of fentanyl and $400,000.
But Casino wasn't just about music. Reports from Complex and other outlets say he played a role behind the scenes, helping manage business operations for free bands while Future's star power skyrocketed. Over the years, Casino released his own projects, dropped tracks like Cashed Out and collaborated with artists such as 21 Savage on Deal, keeping his name active in the streets and online conversations. Fans also spotted him on major tours, including the Purple Rain Tour in 2015 and the Summer 16 Tour in 2016. Media outlets like The Fader covered his mixtape releases, and his presence stayed consistent in Atlanta rap discussions. Here's where things start getting real complicated and the numbers just don't line up at all. Federal prosecutors pointed out that Casino reportedly claimed to earn around $2,166 per month working as a studio manager, but at the same time, he was allegedly staying in a $4 million home and moving around in multiple high-end cars like a Mercedes and a BMW. That math didn't add up, and investigators noticed it immediately. That's when everything really escalated behind the scenes. Those financial details set off alarms, and from that point forward, attention on the situation intensified fast. On Friday, November 14, 2025, federal agents from the FBI and DEA, working alongside Clayton County authorities, carried out a court-approved search at a rental property in Forest Park, Georgia. This wasn't some random visit or routine check-in. It was part of a large federal initiative known as Operation Takeback America, connected to a Homeland Security task force focused on disrupting organized distribution networks. The location itself tells a big part of the story. Forest Park is a quiet suburban area just south of Atlanta, roughly 15 minutes from downtown, making it close enough to move fast but far enough to stay low-key. This wasn't a coincidence at all. The property wasn't even a permanent residence either. It was set up as a short-term Airbnb-style rental, which speaks volumes about how things operate in 2025. No long-term lease, no ownership records, just temporary spaces that can be exited quickly without leaving much behind. According to federal court documents, authorities didn't show up guessing or hoping for results. They knew exactly what they were walking into, and this had been on their radar for a while. This wasn't a last-minute decision or an impulsive move by law enforcement. Officials had gathered enough verified information to convince a federal judge to authorize the search, which usually means extended monitoring, detailed tracking, and insider information had already been in play. By the time federal agents entered that property, they already knew exactly what they were walking into. That's how these high-level investigations usually work. They don't show up guessing or hoping to stumble onto something. They move in when the picture is already clear. The timing of the operation matters too. November 14th landed on a Friday, and that's not accidental at all. Federal teams often choose Fridays because it allows extra time to process evidence and organize paperwork before a judge is available the following week. That window gives investigators room to tighten everything up before the first court appearance. This was a strategic move from start to finish, not a rushed decision. Every detail had already been planned out long before anyone showed up at the door. What really stands out is that Casino wasn't by himself. Court records list a second individual, David Este Monte Diaz, who was just 23 years old at the time. That age gap is huge when you put it next to Casino, who's in his early 40s. That difference alone raises serious questions about how everything was structured and who played which role. Federal prosecutors are almost guaranteed to highlight that contrast when laying out their narrative. Multiple age groups involved usually signals a layered setup, not something random or accidental. According to the criminal complaint filed in the Northern District of Georgia, Casino was inside the short-term rental alongside Diaz when agents arrived. When officials approached the property, prosecutors claim Casino attempted to leave through a side exit but was stopped quickly outside. Authorities say he was found carrying roughly $4,000 in cash at the time. While inside the residence, investigators uncovered what they described as a large-scale operation. The search reportedly revealed over 21 kilograms of illegal substances, including packaging marked with a high-end designer logo, which immediately drew attention. That detail instantly caught attention because it exposed the branding tactics allegedly being used in these underground operations. And that was just the beginning. Agents reportedly uncovered around $300,000 stored inside a plain cardboard box, plus another $80,000 packed into a high-end Goyard bag that investigators believe belonged to Casino. What made that even more striking is that authorities noted the bag closely matched one Casino had previously shown on his Instagram account. That connection turned social media into evidence real fast, and it showed just how closely officials were tracking his public image. Investigators didn't stop at the location itself. They were clearly studying everything: his online presence, his lifestyle, and how his spending patterns lined up against the income he claimed on paper. That level of detail suggests this case was being built long before the search ever happened. Officials also took possession of several items they described as indicators of an organized operation. This included a restricted personal defense item, a cash counting machine, and sealing equipment commonly used for packaging purposes. Prosecutors later pointed to these tools as signs of a structured setup rather than anything casual or personal. The Goyard bag detail especially stands out. Goyard is a luxury French brand known for bags that can cost thousands of dollars, and prosecutors believe matching that item to Casino's social media posts helped strengthen their overall narrative. It wasn't just about what was found, but how it connected back to his public lifestyle. According to court filings, the cash counting device suggested the ability to quickly organize large sums of money, something usually associated with high-volume financial movement. Meanwhile, the sealing equipment was described as something often linked to preparing items for transport and storage, not everyday household use. When authorities say they find large amounts of cash alongside specialized tools like these, prosecutors argue it becomes harder to frame the situation as incidental or unrelated. Every object added another layer, and together they painted a picture officials believe supports a much larger operation than what was visible on the surface. The sheer amount of cash alone told a serious story. Roughly $380,000 in physical currency isn't normal, even in the music industry, where money is constantly moving. Legit business deals usually go through banks, checks, or digital transfers, not stacks of paper sitting around. That level of cash strongly suggests transactions that couldn't move through traditional financial systems, and investigators know that, juries know that, everybody knows that. It immediately raises questions that are hard to ignore. During a press briefing, U.S. Attorney Theodore S. Hertzberg said, according to All Hip Hop, that the joint effort stopped a massive amount of harmful material from reaching communities. He added that people involved in these kinds of networks might try to stay out of sight, but authorities will eventually track everything down and seize the profits tied to it. FBI, Atlanta Special Agent in Charge, Paul Brown backed that up with similar comments. He described the seizure as a major disruption to operations that were creating serious risks across the region, making it clear this was a priority case for federal agencies. Casino and Diaz later appeared in federal court on November 19, 2025. Both were formally charged with conspiracy connected to large-scale distribution activities, charges that carry heavy penalties under federal guidelines. Once the news broke, the hip-hop world went unusually quiet. Social media platforms like Twitter and Instagram exploded with reactions from fans and industry insiders. Some people were stunned, while others pointed to the ongoing pattern of legal trouble surrounding artists and their families. One detail stood out more than anything else. Future himself didn't say a word. As of early December, there had been no public statement from him regarding the situation, which only added to the speculation online. According to multiple outlets, including Complex and The Source, events escalated fast behind the scenes. Federal prosecutors quickly filed a motion arguing that Casino should remain in custody without bond while the case moved forward. Their argument was built around three main points, and prosecutors didn't hold back at all. They cited the seriousness of the charges, the possibility of an extreme sentence if convicted, and what they described as a high risk that Casino might leave the area. In their detention filing, prosecutors laid everything out clearly. They highlighted the huge gap between Casino's claimed monthly income of about $2,166 and the lifestyle he appeared to be living. According to their filing, someone reporting barely over $2,000 a month while staying in a $4 million mansion just didn't make sense. The government made it clear they weren't buying that explanation at all. They argued the numbers raised serious questions about where the money was really coming from and said that situation alone made him a flight risk in their eyes. But here's where the story took a sharp turn. On November 26th, a magistrate judge ruled that Casino should be released on bond. That decision immediately triggered a response from prosecutors who asked for the ruling to be reviewed, pushing hard to keep him in custody. They didn't let up for a second. Still, the case moved through the system fast, and by December 2nd, after the review process, Casino was officially approved for a $100,000 bond. According to Complex, the bond was secured using his girlfriend's home, and he was released into the care of his sister Brittany just days later. Now make no mistake, Casino isn't just roaming free, he's under strict home confinement with tight conditions attached. He can't leave the house without approval unless it's for court or medical reasons. On top of that, he's subject to location monitoring, required to actively look for work, and restricted from excessive drinking. Authorities are keeping a close eye on everything he does. Almost immediately after getting released, Casino posted on Instagram. He shared a FaceTime video with young Scooter's son, adding the caption, "Quit all the talk in UNC home, none else to it," along with the hashtag #Urte, a phrase tied to staying quiet. That's when the rumors really started spreading fast, and once talk like that hits the streets, it's hard to slow it down. Speculation began flying about possible cooperation with authorities, even though sources close to Casino pushed back hard on that idea. According to posts shared by Streetwork85N on Twitter, people close to the situation said his release was the result of strong legal strategy and experienced attorneys, not because he was providing information to investigators, but in street culture, once those whispers start, they take on a life of their own. The industry reaction has been quiet, but you can feel it. Casino's social media presence changed overnight. What used to be filled with studio sessions, luxury cars, and designer visuals suddenly dropped to just one simple post about being home. The Free Bands camp has stayed completely silent. No official statements, no public support posts, no explanations, and this is a label usually known for being loud and visible when things pop off. That silence didn't go unnoticed at all. Atlanta radio stations covered the situation heavily when the arrest happened, and they covered it again when Casino was released. But the usual debates, jokes, and online back and forth that come with hip-hop stories just weren't there this time. This wasn't treated like entertainment news or industry drama. The tone was way more serious because this situation involved federal court matters, not social media back and forth. And here's the part a lot of people overlooked. Being released on bond in a federal case like this is extremely uncommon. When someone is facing a mandatory minimum of 10 years and is tied to large-scale allegations, prosecutors typically push to keep them in custody until trial. The fact that a magistrate judge approved his release, even after the government pushed back hard, says a lot. It strongly suggests Casino's legal team identified weaknesses or arguments in the case that were strong enough to shift the court's position. The conditions attached to that release are no joke at all. Home incarceration means he's basically swapping a detention facility for his own house with zero room for mistakes. Location monitoring tracks his movements constantly, and any unauthorized step outside could send him straight back into federal holding and cancel the bond immediately. At 41 years old, Casino clearly understands what's at stake here. This could be his last real shot at staying free before trial, and one wrong move would change everything. Federal officials have also made it clear that Operation Take Back America isn't just about one person or one situation. It's part of a much larger Homeland Security task force effort focused on dismantling large, organized networks that stretch well beyond a single city. Court filings suggest prosecutors believe there may be broader supply connections involved, possibly extending across state lines. That's why certain details, like the luxury branded packaging, stood out so much. The use of designer logos and high-end imagery shows how polished and sophisticated these operations have become. It blurs the line between street culture, branding, and serious federal investigations in a way that feels very 2025. There's also an uncomfortable reality people are finally talking about. Prosecutors are increasingly using lifestyle and social media content as supporting evidence. In Casino's case, images of designer bags and luxury vehicles shared online were cited as part of the argument against him. What you post doesn't just disappear, it can follow you straight into a federal courtroom. The overlap between rap culture, social media visibility, and federal prosecution keeps getting more complicated every year. There are three major things everyone is watching closely as this situation continues to unfold. First is whether Casino's legal team can work out an agreement with prosecutors or if the case moves forward to a full trial. Federal cases rarely reach that stage because the government usually comes in extremely prepared, but with penalties this severe on the table, every option matters. Second, people are paying close attention to whether any additional names get pulled into the investigation. Operation Takeback. America is still active, and if prosecutors believe there's a larger network involved, more charges could be announced down the line. The wording in the court filings suggests this situation may not be finished yet. Third, there's the ripple effect on Freebands and Future's overall brand. While Future himself has not been accused of any wrongdoing, having a close family member tied to a major federal case can create serious complications. Business relationships, partnerships, and public perception all feel the impact, whether fair or not. Zooming out, this case shows how enforcement is approaching hip-hop culture and street-connected lifestyles in 2025. Federal investigators are now using social media activity, lifestyle imagery, and public associations as supporting material in ways that simply weren't possible 10 years ago. Your Instagram posts, music videos, captions, and public image can all be examined and referenced in court. That reality is changing how artists and their circles move, whether they realize it or not. Officials have also framed this case as part of a broader effort to protect communities nationwide. They've stated that the materials taken off the streets could have contributed to a large number of harmful outcomes if they had circulated further. As for Casino, the road ahead is still unclear. He's facing extremely serious consequences if the case doesn't break his way, especially at this stage in his life. Even the minimum penalties under federal guidelines would be life-altering, and his legal team has a major challenge ahead. The lessons coming out of Casino's situation go way beyond one person or one family. This is really about understanding how the game works at every level. There's no instruction manual for coming up, and success doesn't automatically erase where you started or the choices made along the way. For every artist who manages to move forward clean, there are plenty of stories where the past circles back in ways nobody expected. That reality hits hard, and this case puts it front and center. What makes this situation feel extra heavy is the timing. Casino had been around the industry for more than a decade. He watched Freebands grow from a tight-knit crew into a legitimate label with major distribution deals and real business infrastructure. He also watched his younger brother rise into one of the most influential artists of this generation. That means he had access to legitimate income, real opportunities, and multiple legal paths forward. But according to federal prosecutors, none of that was enough to pull him away from the activities that eventually led to November 14th. That's the part that makes people shake their heads. The hip-hop community has seen this pattern play out over and over again. From well-known organizations to high-profile artist situations, the same story keeps repeating. Talent and success in music don't shield anyone from consequences tied to past decisions. If anything, being well-known can bring even more attention. High-profile cases send messages, and authorities don't shy away from making examples when visibility is involved. Casino's legal team clearly has a massive challenge ahead of them. Federal cases are a whole different world compared to local ones. The resources are deeper, the timelines are longer, and the success rate for prosecutors speaks for itself. His attorneys will need to examine every detail carefully. That means challenging evidence, questioning how information was gathered, and looking for any weaknesses in an investigation that likely took months, maybe even years to build. Items like luxury branded packaging, large sums of cash broken down in specific ways, specialized equipment, and digital tracking data all stack up into a narrative the government feels confident standing behind. That confidence is exactly why federal cases feel so heavy. Mandatory minimum guidelines leave very little flexibility. Even if a negotiated agreement happens, it still operates within strict limits that don't exist in other courts. 10 years is the starting point, not the worst-case scenario. At 41 years old, even the lowest possible outcome would mean a return to the outside world well into his 50s. That's not just time lost. That's a career shift, a life reset, and a future that looks completely different than what it once was. On one side, that's his blood, his older brother, someone who was there from the very beginning. Loyalty and love don't just disappear because federal charges enter the picture, and that emotional tie is real no matter how serious things get. But on the other side, Future is running major businesses. We're talking endorsements, partnerships, and a public image worth millions. One wrong move, one comment that looks like support for illegal activity, and sponsors can start pulling back fast. It's an impossible position with no clean answer. Every move gets analyzed, every silence gets questioned, and every appearance carries weight. The free band's brand itself also feels the pressure. Hip-hop labels and crews have always walked a tight line between street credibility and corporate respectability. You need authenticity to connect, but you need polished partnerships to build long-term wealth. When someone connected to your circle faces a serious federal case, that balance becomes way harder to manage. Radio stations start asking quiet questions. Streaming platforms take notice. Corporate partners get nervous even if nothing directly involves them. It might not feel fair, but that's the reality of how the industry works now. Looking back at Casino's social media history, you can see how lifestyle became part of the narrative. Designer bags, luxury cars, high-end living, all of it was shared publicly for thousands to see. In the social media era, every post can turn into a data point. Every flex becomes something investigators might analyze. Every public display of wealth invites questions about where it came from. In this case, Instagram content didn't just tell a story, it became part of the official record. That alone should be a major wake-up call across the industry. The bigger implications stretch far beyond casino and free bands. Federal enforcement is clearly shifting how it approaches hip-hop culture. Lyrics, visuals, captions, and public appearances are now being examined in ways that blur the line between art, image, and legal scrutiny. The real question now is where performance ends and responsibility begins. When does a lyric stop being art and start being treated as intent? That's a conversation the industry needs to have urgently because the legal system has already made its position clear. For younger artists watching this unfold, the message couldn't be louder. Everything you post, everything you say, and everywhere you go can be documented and examined. Nothing exists in a vacuum anymore. Federal authorities operate on a completely different level. They have tools local departments don't. They can monitor digital activity, track movement patterns, review online behavior, and quietly build cases over long periods of time without tipping anyone off. By the time warrants get executed, the groundwork is usually already finished. What looks sudden to the public has often been months, sometimes years in the making. Casino's release doesn't mean this situation is over. It simply means he has a limited window to prepare while the case continues to move forward. That distinction matters a lot. Federal prosecutors don't lose often, and everyone involved knows that. His strongest option may be negotiating an agreement that reduces long-term exposure, but even that path likely comes with serious consequences. The other option is pushing forward and challenging everything in court, which carries enormous risk if things don't break his way. The pressure couldn't be higher. This case forces uncomfortable but necessary conversations across hip-hop and beyond. Visibility, success, and culture now come with a level of scrutiny that didn't exist before. So, the debate continues. What do people really think about Casino being granted bond? Does his legal team have a real opening here, or does the evidence feel too heavy to overcome? And when someone close to you is facing something this serious, is silence the smartest move, or does speaking up help more than it hurts? So now it's on you! How do you think this situation impacts the entire free band's operation moving forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I actually read every single one, and I really want to know where you stand on this. If this breakdown gave you the full picture on Casino's release and kept it honest from start to finish, do me a solid and smash that subscribe button right now. It helps more than you think. Make sure you hit the notification bell too so you don't miss any updates. This case is still unfolding, and trust me, there's more coming that you're going to want to hear as the next chapter develops. Also, share this video with anyone who's been following Casino's situation or anyone who wants to understand what really happened beyond the headlines. The more people who know the full story, the better the conversations get. If you're into deep dives like this on major hip-hop moments, let me know in the comments what stories you want me to break down next. I'm here to give you the facts, keep it real, and cut through the noise. Your support keeps this channel moving forward, and I appreciate every single one of you for rocking with me. Thanks for watching, stay locked in, and I'll see you on the next one.